Oh. All right, so I'll probably talk to myself because I didn't tell anyone about this, but I normally do a runner by runner preview, but thought I may as well do it this way. So at least I can argue with anyone who does show up. Few things to look at before worrying too much about the runners. Here's the weather. There's like conflicting reports, right, of life-altering amounts of rain, and then this thing that I use doesn't say much at all. That's it. That's all you need. 128 radar loop. What's this crap? I want to tell me what the weather's going to be like at Rose Hill. Tell me the forecast. What do they say? Less than 1 mil, 1 to 5 mil. There's big chances it's going to be a dry track, right? Yeah, that's it. 0 to 500. I agree. So at the moment, what are they saying? It is a 7 or something. 7 with 4 mils of rain last 7 days. Oh, that's irrigation. 5 mils last 24 hours, 26 mils last 7 days. 2 metre rail. You'd expect that they're probably going to get 4 or 5 off. Setting up. I reckon surely it's going to be a 5 or a 6. If it's any worse than that, probably got to adapt everything. But that's the beauty of hammering this on a Tuesday for the first time, isn't it? Storm Boy all day. Interesting. All right, well, we'll kick off with Storm Boy. So there's obviously a number of key lead-ups. Storm Boy and Prost come out of the skyline. Todman's got a bunch of runners. Switzerland, Straight Charge, Shangri, Bodyguard, Espionage. Even it's a talking point in itself, not making it into the field. Black Opal's got a couple of runners. Size Produce, Pago, Sweet Embrace, Blue Diamond. It's weird. After going through the race, obviously there's certain horses better suited. Betting says that there's some roughies in the race, but there's not too many absolute dead wood horses in this race this year, which is really good. Probably the best Gold Slipper I can remember depth-wise. There's obviously a decent gap between the top few and the rest, but they're not legless, right? So, yeah, it's actually a slipper that's fun to talk about this year. Just hope the weather doesn't do anything crazy. We'll kick off with the favourite. What's the betting? Why hasn't our man got the slipper market in there? Top Sport got it? Surely. Feature races? Nope. Today's racing? Futures? Nope. How can they not have a golden slipper market at the top of their page somewhere? I've got to have lost the plot. Here. 210. Holy cow. 440 Switzerland. Can we get this in betting order? No. $10 Lady Camelot. 17 Espionage. $10 Straight Charge. Hmm. Scroll to the bottom, sort by div. You've done that before. Can't even get a map. Why can't I get a map? Here we go. So map-wise, I think, yeah, quite important probably to kick off that way rather than just kick straight into Stormboy. Map's going to be really important this year. Gay obviously dominates the on-speed horses. The only other horse that's sort of shown a lot of early speed or some early speed last up was Doubling Down. It led up that race on Saturday. They certainly didn't go quick there, and that was not as high a class race as this. So Bowman on, Doubling Down, drawn wide. You'd expect it to probably struggle to keep up or want to keep up with the early speed. I think Straight Charge will go straight to the front from the middle draw. Listening to Adrian and the booking of Shin and the way they rode this horse in the Trial Lady at Camelot, I'd say they'll take a sit with it. What do they do with Storm Boy? All depends on how he jumps for sure. I don't think they'll really want to get him to the rail unless it's in front. If you can get him out of the gates and rolling, they'll probably be happy for it to take the front, but it's probably unlikely, I'd say. Fully Lit will be told to take a sit, I would say. Shangri Express will be told to take a sit, I would say. And that sort of leaves Coleman, Traffic Warden, Switzerland. Prost could end up outside leader, I would imagine, if it jumps well. And I think they'll control the speed. Is it too much to say these three chances? You're saying they are the three chances, or these are the three best chances? Or we'll get to that. I think he does have to drift, especially if the rain comes. He's a huge query, especially with the rider. Like if it was James McDonald, I think he'd understand the conditions a little bit more. I know he got away with the win with Shinzo up the fence last year when everyone rolled off, but yeah, very different horse, very different setup, pace all around, drawn inside, tricky. So yeah, there is. Stormboy one out, one back with Prost in a 3 wide line. Well, depends who leads. If Straight Charge leads from that middle draw and Doubling Down doesn't give him a cross, then there could be a spot there for Prost. So we'll go through the lead-ups, chat about them. This is the Skyline Stake. So his setup's quite interesting, I think, Stormboy. He's basically had 2 days out since maybe August last year. He's had 2 days away from training. So that's an incredibly long time for a 2-year-old to be in work. His first trial was on the 27th of October. He had 2 days out from what I've been told after the Magic Millions win, and he was back trialling a month later. 49 days between runs, he won that Skyline Stakes, and now he's 3 weeks into this. So I think they've certainly tried to keep him together and get him here in one piece. Conflicting little rumours about whether his track work's been at its absolute best recently, but Gay was talking about trialling him last week too, so he's obviously not quiet or whatever. But she's also a little bit crazy. So not easy for a horse to do this. Probably is what I'm trying to get at. 5th run, first preparation, been up for a long time, but he is physically a 2-year-old you don't get to see very often. So if any horse is built to deal with it, he is. And we'll find out Saturday basically what he's got. This is a bit of a nothing leader, to be honest. Misses the kick. They run cover for him early. These aren't fast horses. Prost half misses the start. So this is Prost. Duvano back in behind. And from this point on, he just completely controls, has everything his own way. He's a little bit keen, probably going a bit slower than he likes. Gets to the right part of the track. If anything, Prost is sort of taking ground off him late. And this was on a 4.4, so not really what you call rain affected, even though it was like a little bit softish and they were getting off the inside. He's not stopping through the line by any means. But you wouldn't say it was a dominant performance. It was a dominant performance, but he was handed it sort of thing. What I'm saying is he wasn't just clearly dominant, and you wouldn't think that under any circumstances, say, Prost couldn't beat him, which is, you know, a query. You're trying to pick holes in this horse, right, from this point for me. His runs before that, his first start was very similar. Second start did everything wrong, beat up on some average horses. Third start in the Magic Millions, he did the same thing. So, yeah, I think the argument's definitely there that he's very short in betting, especially with Ryan Moore coming to ride him, that query of the inside draw, because he does often begin that little bit. This is probably the best angle to show it, why I'm showing it. He's often that half a length slow and does muster, and he is a big bugger. But if he doesn't quite jump and he sort of does this, and for argument's sake, if this is sort of fully lit and he gets pushed in behind, then it's game on for sure. For sure. Traffic Warden, rock hard, fit the smoke. Yeah, I'll talk about Traffic Warden because I think he's an interesting runner. I don't think he's coming out of the right form race, and he's been beaten up a little bit when he's raced Storm Boy there early, but that was a sit sprint, and you know, a lot of water's gone under the bridge since. So that was the 2nd of December. So he's certainly worth looking at. Just talking about this horse in particular, he's certainly done nothing wrong physically. He's incredible. He's certainly very strong. He's managed inside gates before, but they're in small fields. He hasn't had to tackle an inside draw at a big field yet, but most of these horses haven't tackled a big field in general. So he's basically ticks all the boxes. He just probably needs a little bit of luck from that draw to stay one off outside of fully lit early, and then, you know, it's up to Ryan Moore. I can't see him busting the horse to lead personally, but if he settles 4th, 5th, something like that, you wouldn't think these horses would be able to keep him in a pocket around a bend. Yeah, so he should get his chance, is the key to it. Is he too short? It's open to interpretation, isn't it? Yeah, Espionage, again, we'll talk about it. It's just crazy that it doesn't get a start. Obviously, Nash had a bit of a mare on the horse last start, but for a horse to not get a run in a Golden Slipper, being a Breeders' Plate winner, 2nd in a Silver Slipper, and then 5th in the Todman, you know, very unlucky, but that doesn't matter. He's just incredible. 204,200 in prize money and doesn't get a start in the Slipper. It's probably got to be a record, I would imagine. And, yeah, very, very, very unlucky. It's not in the race. Fully lit. He tackled an open 2-year-old and then tackled a restricted. I think it was an English race. Won that race. That form's okay. You know, King of Rosso, Rud Royale. It's not bad form, but it certainly don't think it's top level form. He went to Canberra. 29 days between runs. He did have a trial in between. Thought he was ridden a little bit close here. Nitpicking on Reggie, sort of he jumps and looks the leader and then taken on by one of the local horses. Holmes of Court's the one taking the sit on him. You can see as soon as Tommy's established that he's going to get that spot in behind them, he lets his horse relax completely, whereas Regan sort of pops off and chases the leader very early, you know, straight outside him. He could have probably settled that length further back and somewhere just in front of Tommy, rather than being up outside this horse eyeballing it. He should have treated it as a bit of a pacemaker, I would have thought, rather than sort of being up there now eyeballing and putting the pressure on when he really didn't need to. Would that have changed the result? Not really sure. Does it matter heading to a race like this? Probably not. Holmes of Court's form's not bad. He's in the race here as well. You can see they're not really doing a lot. Yeah, I don't think this is Slipper lead-up form. We'll cover it because they're in the race, but both of them need to sort of really improve significantly, I would say, and things happen to other runners to feature in this race. If anything, he might have been a touch underdone, but jeepers creepers, he was only 29 days between runs and he trialled and he had 2 runs before that. So I'd say that he was being kind to the horse to say that he's underdone. Gate 1 and Clipperton hopefully keeps him out of the way. I hope he doesn't lead, or if he does lead, I hope that Storm Boy's not behind him for its sake, because it's probably a horse that I would see struggling heavily over the last sort of 150, 200 metres. You wouldn't think Clippo's going to push, no, and it wouldn't be in the field's best interest, in the stable's best interest, I don't think, to have it being the one out in front. For its chances as well too, I think it's much better taking the sit and conserving its energy. Shangri Express hasn't done a lot wrong in its career. Again, it sort of tackled 2 open races early, won that $1 million golden gift, which obviously gets it straight into this race. Came back and led up against Switzerland. For Shangri-La Express. The light is on. And was just outgunned there. Was first up, and Switzerland had the run under its belt. But 2 trials. It was only 98 days between previous preparation. Did have to show a little bit more speed, set a solid tempo, but Switzerland ends up outside it. So no real excuses for Shangri-La versus Switzerland here. I still maintain this was Switzerland's best effort, and probably is the reason why I do give it a realistic chance of winning this race. If it hadn't shown that it can sit up outside this like a solid tempo and kick on, I'd be really delicate. I'd have it sort of double figures for sure in this race. But I think this was his best win, Switzerland, where he sits off a solid tempo and he's sort of off the bit and able to find. The form hasn't exactly bounced through the roof. You know, Duvana, Lifeline. These horses haven't really gone right on with it. They've probably proved second tier, but he's had the hardest run in the race and done a good job. Nice and solid. Shangri-La had its chance. Then he went to the Todman, and we'll have a look at that race now. Overdrawn the fence, straight charge. He went to the Todman, which was another fast run race. Talked about this at length, but again, we're covering it because we're covering it. Straight charge, knuckles at the start, kicks through. Shangri-La probably had the speed to lead if they wanted him to, but obviously your stable expected Espionage to roll forward and Shangri-La then to take the sit. He was then sort of dragged back behind them, and I don't think that issue with Espionage affected Shangri-La at all. I'd say he definitely had his chance. Switzerland's straight outside him. Espionage, Bodyguard getting a bit of backwash too back there. So this race certainly is worth having a decent look at from a slipper perspective, because we've got, 1, 2, 3 chances in the race, 4 chances in the race, and Espionage if he gets a run. Bodyguard went okay. I thought he was certainly given basically a barrier trial, and will improve going into this race, I would suggest. He's probably that horse that needs to find a length or two and needs to find other horses, having trouble to win the race. But he does sprint okay here when he gets out behind Switzerland. He levels out and starts climbing in his action a bit, which I don't love. Shangri-La's there sort of battling away every possible chance, and straight charge, sort of said, had a few things go against him, got taken on in front, and was left the sitting shot. Personally, from that race in particular, I think straight charge was the best run in the race. No huge knock on Switzerland, but certainly had all favours. Not missing anything. Yeah, so straight. I think Shangri-La is just one of those horses that sort of goes into first fours because he's going to get that perfect run. But I don't think he can win unless something strange happens. Rud Royale comes out of this size produce. It was a little bit quicker run than what I first thought I saw, so maybe the adjusted times or the correct times were a little bit faster and more flattering of Traffic Warden, because the first set of times I saw it, we set at ridiculously slow tempo and was basically handed the race. So they're suggesting this was a slightly above average tempo. which makes a difference for sure. So this horse is, a little bit more adaptable than what maybe everyone thought at first. Draws absolutely ideally here to land in a very similar position to Switzerland. 1,400 metres back to 1,200 can be a positive, and it can be a positive in a fast run slipper, which you would suggest this race is very unlikely to be run at a slow tempo, so that can only help that he's got this 1,400 metre run under his belt. Rud Royale is back here in the yellow with the red. I'd say the winner's the only horse that can trouble them in the slipper. He's 50 to 1 or something, which I thought was a bit crazy, because I just love that 1,400 metre run under his belt as a bit of an outlier form line coming into a race that potentially could be high pressure. So if that's the way it unfolds, Storm Boy has a few issues towards the inside, and something's going to be strong late. This horse should be in a spot to take advantage of a strong tempo and should be strong. So I can find an angle for him at 50 to 1 without any drama whatsoever. Traffic Warden going strongly with 50 metres to go. Nurse to the line from the outside draw at 1,400. Yeah, pretty soft win. Certainly couldn't see the second horse turning the tables anytime soon, and I think it draws pretty poorly, doesn't it? It draws, Rud Royale draws 14 and Traffic Warden draws 6. Decent setups for both, as I said, to be strong. No real huge knock on Rud Royale. I just think he's maybe lacks the class of a few of the others. But he carries similar form to, say, Coleman and Dublin Down. And that form did measure up last week, even though it was in lesser grade. So, and not fence sitting on these horses, just being devil's advocate and trying to work out, how strong this Melbourne form is, because it certainly comes into play when we get down to the fillies. Straight Charge we've talked about has led them up 3 of its 4 runs. First start in a race, sat outside the leader in the Breeders in the race that Espionage won. Super professional horse. First time he's ever really done anything too crazy out of the gates. Last time, if he pings the lids here, I expect him to lead. I think he's the one from the stable that they'll designate the go-forward horse. Any rain really brings his horse right into it. I think any sort of soft ground, he's going to excel where others may, they're at best queries, whereas at least this guy sort of handled it and shown that he can skip through that sort of ground. So I don't know who chicken. They won't sit and sprint like this though. No, they won't sit and sprint. No, well, Traffic Warden can't win if they sit and sprint. He can only win if they go fast, I think. So he wouldn't want them to. He wouldn't want them to sit and sprint. He just couldn't possibly win. If this horse can control from the front, which I think is potentially possible, he's going to be in the finish too. So I think he's a double-edged positive Straight Charge. I think he's got the draw of all the Waterhouse horses to settle basically wherever he wants. If Lady of Camelot pings, he could sit outside it. If Storm Boy pings, he could sit outside it. If they don't go quicker, if he can control, I doubt anything's going to lead him from wider. So he's got those. He can have a look at the ones inside basically and choose where he wants to be, which I think's a positive. He's I've got him certainly in the top 3 and not far away from Storm Boy betting wise. So personally, I think he's going to run really well. Really well set up. He's had that previous preparation with a good couple of breaks, which I think's important to be, well set up and peaking here, which I think he's got as good a setup as any horse. He had that obviously little setback in between first and second up, but I don't think that's a big issue now. Trialled in between, so I think he's definitely at his peak, and I can't see him doing anything but running well. We've looked at his lead-ups. Basically, the only other one that may be worth quickly looking at is that softish track run at Rose Hill off that little break. He certainly had his chance. He was gifted the front by Nash and allowed to sort of lead and control. So it'll be a very different race in the slipper, one would imagine. But he can show that he doesn't have any drama with this sort of slightly shifty ground. Quickens, changes leg, and doesn't look like really stopping to me here. And this was off a break, so I expect him to run very, very well in the slipper. Switzerland, again, he's a horse. I know straight form lines. Bentley Biscuit was the last Gay Waterhouse backmarker. They all lead. Bentley Biscuit wasn't a backmarker. He led all the way and ran track records at Kembla Grange. But I know where you're sort of going. Not too many horses from the stable are backmarkers. And if they are, they're normally horses that sort of need a mile or something like that. There's a couple of her 2-year-olds are a bit like that. Prost is probably a horse that's better ridden off the speed, but hasn't had the chance to really do so. I don't know what they'll do with him from the gate. I'm assuming they'll push forward if he jumps well. Switzerland, my issue with him is from day one, he's looked like he's he's going to be a better horse in 6 months' time sort of horse, like a nice horse with a frame that he hasn't grown into. They've done a great job with him to get into the race, considering this is all off one preparation. Hadn't trial before Christmas. First trial was, early January, and then went bang, bang, back up 2 weeks into his first start. 2 weeks. So he's doing it all on natural ability here. He's basically held his form ratings-wise. I'm not a big ratings person, but he's held it. He hasn't gone backwards, and he hasn't really improved significantly. He's just sort of held that line. I think he probably needs to find a little bit more here for sure. It's dangerous to knock horses that get every chance in the run and capitalize on it multiple times, because it's a bit like a horse like Think About It. It is a quality of a good horse to be able to do that. I just think physically he's up against it. Just keep going to the well. Very scared of Chris Waller on big days, obviously too, that his horses can defy most things that animals shouldn't be able to do. So yeah, I'm going to take a set against him personally, but I'm not going to say he definitely can't win. I just think that he's the horse that savage unders in the race, considering physically he's probably not there as much as some of the others. They've got better setups than him. Tactically, they're going to be in front of him. He's got a perfect draw if he can take advantage of it, which he probably will. He's got the right rider. He's got a lot of positives. I just think that physical attributes are going to hold him back a bit, and if he's going to need all the favours again, I would imagine. Dublin with admitted form. Yeah, so that's my line on Switzerland. I think he's going to run a positive race. I think he'll sort of run top 6 or something like that, but I think he's a little bit vulnerable this time. But I have said that these last couple of starts, and he's proved me wrong to a certain degree. Well, especially last start, I thought he would be. I didn't think he'd win there, but he did have a few things go his way, which he's going to need here again, I think. Bodyguard is the typical Snowden horse. Apart from that little setback going into the Blue Diamond, he's supposed to go there, and they wouldn't let him run. His run the other day was the run of a Snowden horse that doesn't need to win and will peak on this day. So he's a definite horse that can improve. Zara goes on, big race jockey. His ratings or whatever are pretty much in line with a horse like Switzerland. Again, not a big ratings person, but it helps to have those numbers. Nice and strong first up 1100. We saw the other day he peaked a little bit off in a fast run 12, but he's got the draw to hang around horses like Switzerland and be on the back of them and not be too far back this time. I think that'll be the aim of Zara, to sort of get on the back of a horse like Switzerland for sure, or Homes at Court. And he'll run well, but I think he definitely needs to find a length or two as well. What price is it? What price is his Bodyguard? He'd be 20 to 1 or something. $34. Yeah, that's fair enough. That's the sort of race this is. I definitely can't knock a horse like him at $34. Won't spend too much on Tom and Dublin down. Led all the way in that, what was the race? Sweet Embrace, no. Pago. Showed a little bit more speed than what everyone probably anticipated here. Coleman's in this race as well. They're going to go a lot quicker for mine. Like a horse like a Node wouldn't be leading this race, and neither would old Johnny out here. So I don't think Dublin Down will have the speed to get across early. We'll be stuck in no man's land. I don't think this form's the form. that wins a slipper. Going through that review, Coleman's run was probably better than what it looked. It was favourite for the Blue Diamond. A little bit of time between runs heading into this race. We'll get to Coleman next, but may as well bracket them a little bit here. That form again sort of says that Blue Diamond form's not legless, because both these horses were never in the race there. Bunty beaten 4 lengths and Coleman only finished just in front. So you've got to take notice of it to a little degree for sure, that Blue Diamond form's a chance of being strong for this race. So, you know, it's a genuine roughie. What price is it? 50 to 1, 60 to 1. I think that's fair enough. I think I'd rather back Bodyguard than Dublin Down or Coleman, who is only won 2 races over 1,000 metres. Said that that Blue Diamond. I'll have a look at it. We actually may as well look at the Blue Diamond. So fast run Blue Diamond.
Ready to go. And they're racing. A node began brilliantly wide out and handlebars down. A node's looking for the lead from the wide draw coming across the...
This is not the Blue Diamond.
Start. They are ready. Set to go. Racing. Coleman away.
So Lady of Camelot. Coleman's somewhere there. Where is it? Not sure. Dublin Down must be towards the inside as well. Coleman's here, isn't it? Sort of in the middle. Dublin Down showed a fair bit of early speed, but then completely outpaced. But they are going ridiculously quick here. Sugi out wide, forced to make a longer wide run. Spywire takes Lady of Camelot nowhere. Who else in this race? We've got Sugi, Lady of Camelot, and Nisa just behind them. Traffic Warden's in the race. Rud Royale, Dublin Down, Coleman. So Traffic Warden back here. Rud Royale forced wide. Coleman's inside of Sugi. And Nisa's in the nose roll. It's drawn the car park here, which is a nightmare for it. They basically all had their chance, apart from probably Lady of Camelot, who had to do all the work. Spywire took it nowhere, was left in front a long way out. She never got on her right leg. She never got to let down onto her right leg. And I think all of those things cost her the race. Rud Royale ran on okay. That's Dublin Down back in here with Coleman. So that form's measured up to at least second degree form in Sydney. Traffic Warden poking up here and Rud Royale have both come out and run okay in the size. So that sort of 3 lengths to the 2 fillies that I think are a chance of running well in this race is interesting. And Isa, I think, was the one a little bit flattered, if anything, even though it was going from 1,000 to 1,200. It had the soft run in behind. I agree. I think Coleman will be a good horse, and I actually wish they kind of wouldn't run it. Yeah, interesting question there about horses that SP fave in the Todman and running the slipper. I think definitely Snowden's had a few that have done that. And yeah, it's just interesting whether they're motivated to win the Todman or not. It's probably very important to whether they've run well in that race and won in the slipper, or if they could afford to give their horse a bit more of a kind time in the Todman and then peak in the slipper. I think that's quite important to that sort of data. But yeah, Traffic Warden was poking up pretty nicely. Rud Royale was hitting the line okay. So yeah, this form to me, I think, is certainly not completely legless, and I think it has been treated a little bit poorly. We've already looked at Holmes at Court. Don't think we'll look at him again. Prost is interesting. I think his first up win was the win of a horse that needs further. He beat Traffic Warden there. I think Traffic Warden copped a pretty steady ride from what I can remember. So Prost jumps really well, and then
Traffic Warden will just go in behind them in 4th. From Pick Up the Tab and Fearless last of all. So Prost is being
gets taken on a bit early. Traffic Warden behind the leader. They set a solid even tempo throughout here. The race is not too bad. Tim comes off the heels of the leader and comes around it. Not a great race if you're interest, but yeah, just a tough win from Prost. He doesn't look the sort of horse that's like super flashy, but does everything pretty right. Fearless, I think, ran in that Blue Diamond and ran quite well. So all his form times in okay, whether it's just a length or two below the right form. And we've already looked at Prost in the Skyline Stakes, where he ran really well behind Store Boy. I think he's a horse that has to be taken seriously here. He's the one that does have that slightly icky draw. But if he ends up outside Tim on straight charge, I think he could run a huge race. And I don't think that's ridiculous to predict it being a possibility, especially if the other Waterhouse horses don't pressure the speed early. Then I definitely think it could get outside the leader and be super dangerous from that spot. And I think he's like 25, he's 33 to 1 Prost. 50s into 33s. Yeah, I think he's a huge price. Prost, he'd be going around a winner for me. Hi, Sugi, we've talked about. She's won over 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 this prep, 28 days between runs. She's got to go to that second grand final. Haven't seen her at a trial. I'm not sure if she jumped out. I probably should have looked that up. Can Camelot run past straight charge? No, I don't think so. 14 at boy. What that means? Hard to get that. Yeah, definitely the draw makes the task hugely difficult for Hayasugi in comparison to Lady of Camelot. She's a horse that gives a start anyway, but this is Rose Hill, and if they control the speed at all, or if she's still going to have to run past some very, very good horses here, and I think she's certainly up against it. Her run in the Blue Diamond's great, having to sustain that run by herself down the middle of the track. Nothing else really did it from a similar position she was in. She's obviously a very talented horse. Just has a few things against her, and I guess that's why she's sort of $17. I'm not really knocking her one way or the other. I'd be a little bit surprised if she won, but I do think she has competitive form for the race. It's just the draw and sort of where she gets to in the task she's set in what's a pretty deep race. Lady of Camelot, we've seen her a few times. Her ratings are exceptional. Her first up win, the rating was great. She sustained a strong tempo throughout there. I think she was underdone going into that race. She's got great early speed, as we've seen. The thing I like about her here is, which we didn't get to see last start, even around the bend here, she's still quite green and doesn't change leg. You can see she probably looks under pressure and maybe going to get beat here. And you'll see when she changes leg, Tim puts a couple on her and she changes lead legs and really finds, she's done it yet? So now she sort of picks up, changes gears and runs away from him, which is what I love. The horse that's sort of her true merit's hidden because by her greenness. And if she gets everything right on the day here, I love Shin for this horse. I love that he came up and trialled this horse. Back going this way, I think she's clearly, like, I could make a case this horse should be favourite. I love fillies in this race, the 2 kilos. She's a real bull, sort of strong type.
Air Miles a little slow to leave, so is Cafe.
Shin's out wide here on it, and I think it's important to note that he tried to take the sit with it here and teach you to sort of settle in behind one. I expect that that's what they'll try and do in the slipper. I don't think they'll be wanting to sort of highball with her. I think they'll really want to try and switch her off a little bit if they can. He's the right rider to do it. And even though horses are entitled to trial extremely well when they're hard fit up and racing, this is a pretty special trial for mine, and it is only Hawkesbury. And the time's not out of this world. But just the way she moves, the way she changes leg there, look at like that acceleration. Is acceleration that not many horses that I've seen can do under any circumstances. So maybe a little bit flattering because it is a 2-year-old trial at Hawkesbury and she's hard fit. But, you know, it's hard to ignore that with minimal pressure from the rider, he's not really done a lot. Gives her a very small squeeze there. That's the response he gets. Yeah, I can only see this horse running extremely well. I don't think a wet track will hurt her significantly. It's obviously getting weight off the rivals and draws ideally. So she's the horse that I think should be close enough to favourite. What were the late sectionals like there? What in the trial? Nothing outstanding. They've sort of gone about 4 lengths above standard for an open 800-metre trial at Hawkesbury. She's run the 8th fastest last 200 of the day. So it's not as if she's broken the clock. But, there were how many heats? There were a lot of heats on the day. There were 16 heats, a lot of them open class heats. So, and they were all, well, there was a lot of 800s. I think they blend in all the heats. But, she's done a good job there. And I just love seeing that trial in between where we don't get to see it with all the runners. I think she's very well set up. Reminds me of Metallicity. Metallicity was a cult. Yeah, I think she looks switched on there for sure. And I really love Shin, to be fair. And I love Shin for these sorts of horses. I love the draw for Shin. I love everything about this horse, to be fair. So I think she's going to run really well. Manal's a filly that probably brings the second tier form. She was beaten up a little bit by Lady of Camelot in that replay we showed, and then the race the lead up race she won the Sweet Embraces. Yeah, pretty dubious. Fly again's run well out of that. It ran well to Dublin behind Dublin Down, but behind Drifting, but never really looked like getting there. And I think she needs to improve significantly. Draws the Visitors Gate of 17. Just a bit of a train wreck. I'd be surprised if she won. Anisa, we've talked about. She was 1,000 to 1,200 there in that Caulfield Blue Diamond, which is not easy to do, ridden close to the speed too. So if she drew a gate, I'd really be interested in her. I'd sort of bracket her up with Hayasugi pretty happily, but set 15 gate, very, very difficult to overcome, I think. She's got some speed, but I don't think she's got enough to sort of try and take up a position, so she's probably going to be forced back and really have to circle them. Would she shock me if she won? No. And she's 80 to 1. So I'm certainly not knocking the horse by any stretch, but I think she's going to have to put up some sort of huge performance or have a bias and a bit of help. Espionage, the last horse, we talked about it, wins the Breeders' Plate on debut. Comes out, runs really well behind Espionage when Espionage was given all favours in front, ran the 3rd fastest last 200 of the day there first up, and then it was a complete train wreck. It's a tragedy. This horse is not going to be in the field. It does draw awkwardly, but if it does sneak into the race, I definitely think it can improve significantly and measure up. But, how many times you see a scratching come into the slipper? Probably. Certainly not by design. Only something strange happening to one of the runners. We'll see Espionage take its place. If it gets in, I think it'll run well. Yeah, but that's kind of first look. For me, at this point, I think, Storm Boy is obvious, but too short. Definitely not a betting proposition. It's not a horse that you're going to be unloading on at even money for mine. That was more the Magic Millions day where he didn't have any opposition. Whereas here he certainly does. He's got a little tricky draw. He's got an international rider that doesn't know the quirks of the track that well. He hasn't been riding this track recently. He's obviously a great rider and very capable, but I think, there's enough queries in the setup for Storm Boy, all on one preparation, the rider, the draw, whether he's sort of that little bit slow away or not, to be certainly avoiding taking even money him. Is he a horse you want to take on with huge confidence? I think it's a race to bet in. I think if you've got the same opinion of me that Switzerland's a bit of a risk at $4.50 in the race, is sort of 20% of the market, roughly, if you adjust it to you can take away. And then, if you've got the balls to take on Storm Boy here, then it's a race you probably want to bet in. So, I think Lady of Camelot's going around the best winner for me. At the moment, I'm on straight charge for a result, but I'll probably top it up. Especially if the rain comes. They'll be my best 2 plays, and then I think I'll be making Prost a winner, and I don't even want Hayasugi probably and Anisa to beat me in the race, but they'll probably chop out. So I'll play a few horses around the favourite, but the main results will be the 3 Waterhouse runners in Lady of Camelot, Straight Charge, and Prost. They'll be my 3 best results, and then we'll just sort of touch base later in the week and when we work out what this weather's going to do. Yeah, so it can happen for sure, and it's probably an even money chance, isn't it? I'd say that's probably realistic, maybe even odds on for it to get a start. You got horses, 2 horses backing up 7 days between runs, 3 horses 28 days between runs. They are 2-year-olds. You never know what's going to happen. So 49 is min weight contenders. Yeah, it's just a bit of a pipe opener. Look at the slipper. It's not a definitive locking things in position sort of time to be talking about it. But I do think it looks a good betting race. To be fair, I think the way things have fallen, it really looks good for Straight Charge. It really looks good for Lady of Camelot. And then if I'm taking the opinion that Switzerland's a risk, which is what I'm going to do, Storm Boy's a little bit awkwardly drawn. And, if he beats me, I can live with it. Any other lines of thought or anything you want me to look at or whatever? It's just, as I said, it's sort of it's a bit of a pipe opener. The rain would certainly add further dimensions to it, but I think that only strengthen the chances of horses like Lady of Camelot and Straight Charge personally. So I honestly haven't had a really good look at tomorrow. I've actually got to do that now. So touch base later in the week. I'll do a shorter preview and throw it up on YouTube. I always do one every year, and I'll probably wait until either Wednesday night or Thursday morning just to see whether that rain arrives. Well, they'll definitely play it by ear with a horse like Storm Boy if it wins. Switzerland, I'd be surprised if they kept going on with it, just because he is a little bit on edge, I would say, but not impossible. I definitely think a horse like Prost can go on for sure, and I think it's a horse that wants 1,400 metres. I think Storm Boy wants 1,400 metres. I just don't know whether they'll risk continuing on and on and on with him. Maybe they will, because it's worth so much money to them if he sort of does handle it. A horse like Traffic Warden, they may want to sort of stretch him out, because I don't think I think he's not high class. So if he can knock over a sires after, do the sires double, they may have a shot at the title with him in a race like that. Espionage will certainly try and head that way if it gets into the race here. If not, it may just bypass and go straight to the race there. There's a few horses that I could see sort of going on to a size for sure. Lady of Camelot's interesting. I hadn't probably put any thought into it. On your line on Carrying Lass in Canberra. Have a look. Him, and it's on Thursday. Out of respect. All right, guys. I'll touch base later in the week. I'll probably do a stream Friday, and I'll throw out a preview of a bit more formal for the slipper as well later in the week. As I said, I sort of wanted to touch base, and it's always good to hash things out on here a little bit. I'm getting more used to it, so it's good. Cheers, guys. Later. What are you prepared to lose today? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.